Song Hanjo and I were childhood sweethearts, innocent and inseparable since young. After my coming-of-age ceremony, His Majesty even decreed me to be his crown princess, but everything changed at the Lantern Festival when he saved an orphan girl. He fell in love with her at first sight. To break off our engagement and marry the orphan girl, he knelt before the palace hall for 3 days and nights. His Majesty said he would grant his wish if he gave up the crown prince position, but he hesitated. After our marriage, Song Hanjo resented me for occupying the crown princess position. He placed me in a remote courtyard to fend for myself while being lovey-dovey with the orphan girl. The capital was full of tales praising them, while I, the crown princess, became the biggest laughingstock. I had been unwilling. I had resented. I had made scenes several times, but facing Song Hanjo's cold, disgusted eyes, I only felt my heart being cut like knives. Until I was poisoned to death without ever seeing him. Only then did I realize how absurd and pitiful my short life had been. Not long after my death, Song Hanjo was also killed by the orphan girl. Turns out, the orphan girl was an assassin sent by the third prince. He was filled with deep regret, but unexpectedly, he experienced rebirth. But the orphan girl who killed him also experienced rebirth. The Lantern Festival, a blaze of lanterns and fireworks. I stood on the bridge admiring the dazzling sea of lanterns, and when I turned around, I saw the person before me looking as if he had fallen into a trance. I gently shook his arm. My eyes filled with worry. "Hanjo? Chuge? What is wrong with you?" Song Hanjo suddenly snapped back to his senses, meeting a pair of clear, worried eyes. The emotions in his gaze churned with complexity, and in the end, he pulled me into his embrace. His voice trembled and was hoarse. "Hwaner, I miss you." Hearing his straightforward and hoarse words, my cheeks instantly burned. I subconsciously raised my hands to push him away. "Brother Hanjo, don't do this. There are so many people." But Song Hanjo refused to let go even a bit, his arms tightening further with a force that wouldn't allow escape. "Let go already." My voice was urgent and flustered, forcing myself to ignore the gazes around us. My ears red enough to drip blood. Although Song Hanjo was reluctant, he also knew this wasn't the right occasion. Besides, the person in his arms was so embarrassed, she was about to cry. He paused for a moment, then reluctantly let go. I hurriedly stepped back a few paces, but Song Hanjo grabbed my arm, his gaze scorching, his fingertips trembling as he tidied my hair by my temples. Unable to bear his gaze, my eyes darted around everywhere. Seeing the lantern in my hands, as if finding an excuse, I held the delicate rabbit lantern up in front of him. With traces of warmth still lingering on my cheeks, I asked in a small voice, "Brother Hanjo, is it pretty?" Song Hanjo's gaze locked firmly on me, taking in all my little movements. The person he hadn't seen for so long stood before him. Every gesture carried the familiar liveliness and playful willfulness. The warmth rising from the depths of his heart was about to scorch him. He moved his lips, but before he could speak, a pitiful, timid, sobbing voice came over, and before I could react, a fair and delicate hand appeared on Song Hanjo's arm. The woman looked at the several burly men chasing after her from behind, tears flowing uncontrollably, timidly hiding beside Song Hanjo. Her fingertips pressed so hard they turned white, her voice trembling yet carrying a hint of firmness. "I belong to this young master? I don't know you people." The pursuers saw Song Hanjo's brocade robes and jade garments, his noble and distinguished air, and stopped in their tracks, exchanging glances with each other, not daring to make a move. I came to my senses, seeing that hand clinging to Song Hanjo's arm, then meeting the undisguised affection in the woman's eyes. My brows furrowed, my lips pressed tightly together, feeling inexplicably irritated inside. Song Hanjo's gaze also fell on the hand on his arm, his eyes deep and dark as ink, making it impossible to read his emotions. I was just about to speak when Song Hanjo raised his arm, and swiftly shook off the hand clinging to it. With a thud, the woman, caught off guard, was thrown to the ground, the tears on her face frozen, her face full of shock. Song Hanjo didn't even look, flicking the spot that had been touched, his expression one of disgust. But when he looked at me, his gaze softened. He reached out and put his arm around my shoulder, his tone gentle. "Huaner, it is too crowded and noisy here. Let's go somewhere else to stroll." With that said, Song Hanjo held me close and turned to leave. From start to finish, he didn't spare the person on the ground a single glance. That woman slumped on the ground, watching the departing figures walk away, hand in hand, so well matched and happy. Intense jealousy filled her eyes. Recalling the man's disgusted gaze just now, pain surged up her throat, aching and bitter. The private room on the second floor was quiet. Through the window, one could see the bustling streets, yet Song Hanjo seemed somewhat distracted, his brows tightly furrowed, tinged with a layer of gloom. I raised my hand to stroke his brow, my fingertips gentle. "Brother Hanjo, are you tired? You look so pale." Hearing this, the gloom between his brows dissipated. He reached back to grasp my hand. "It is nothing. No pushing yourself. Go back to the manor and rest." I cut him off, my tone serious. Meeting my unquestionable gaze, Song Hanjo let out a helpless laugh, curled his finger to flick my nose tip, his voice soft. "All right, I'll do whatever you say, young miss. Shall I escort you back to the manor first?" I shook my head and waved the flower lantern in my hand. "I still need to bring some food for my parents. Brother Hanjo, you go ahead first." Watching Song Hanjo's figure disappear into the distance, the smile on my face faded. I looked up toward the bridge crowded with silhouettes, my gaze darkening. After a moment of silence, I turned and walked step by step toward the bridge. The sunlight was bright. I was lying on the chaise lounge, drowsy and half asleep. Song Hanjo suddenly appeared, carrying an exquisite food box. Seeing my dazed look, he walked over. "Knowing you have a sweet tooth, I specially had the Imperial Kitchen make this hibiscus cake." I snapped back to my senses, took the hibiscus cake he handed over, and took a bite. The sweetness spread into my heart. "Brother Hanjo, you are so good to me." He rubbed my head, his tone affectionate yet solemn. "You are my betrothed wife. It is only natural for a husband to treat his wife well." My ear tips quickly flushed crimson before I even had time to feel shy. With a clang, the ambiguous atmosphere was shattered. A teacup fell to the ground, fragments scattering everywhere. Song Hanjo and I looked toward the sound. Su Ruye stood at the doorway, her face deathly pale, her eyes rimmed red, as if she had suffered a tremendous blow. Realizing her loss of composure, she dropped to her knees with a dull thud, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Miss, I was wrong. Please forgive me." Seeing who it was, Song Hanjo's eyes turned ice, cold. "Why is she here?" "Brother Hanjo, last night I really couldn't bear it. Ruya had no one to rely on, so I brought her to the manor." I pinched his sleeve and gently shook it. "Brother Hanjo, you won't be angry, will you?" Song Hanjo withdrew his gaze, wiping the cake crumbs from the corner of my mouth with his fingertip, his tone indulgent. Our Huaner is just too kind-hearted." He glanced sideways at the person still kneeling there, his voice without a trace of warmth. "Get out. From now on, you are not to appear wherever I am." Ever since the Lantern Festival, I felt like Song Hanjo had become a different person. Every day, someone would be sent to deliver the pastries I loved. When he couldn't come see me, he would have someone send letters, reminding me to add more clothes, or sharing interesting stories from the palace. Though he had treated me well before, it was always based on the understanding between childhood sweethearts and the bond of our engagement. But never this attentive and clingy, as if he didn't want to be apart even for a moment. Su Ruya watched all of this day after day, her eyes filled with venomous jealousy and unwillingness. All of this was clearly supposed to be hers. I paid no attention to that resentful gaze from the shadows, immersing myself in joy and happiness every day. This day, Song Han-jo came to find me. Su Ru-yue suddenly appeared, staring at the visitor with a lingering, wistful gaze. "Miss is at Madam's courtyard." Song Han-jo's originally gentle features instantly turned icy cold, and he lifted his foot to leave. "Han, Lang." Su Ru-yue hugged Song Han-jo's waist from behind, her voice choked with pitiful sobs. She had waited so long for a chance to be alone with him. How could she let him leave? "Han, Lang, you've also come back, haven't you? You are blaming me, aren't you?" She couldn't bear his cold treatment and this disparity. These past days, she had watched him dote on and indulge Shen Qinghuan, the love in his eyes completely undisguised. All of this had clearly belonged to her in the previous life. Yet now it was all given to the woman who had lost to her in the previous life. How could she possibly bear it? Her voice broke as she pleaded. "Han Lang, I was wrong. I shouldn't have hidden it from you. Please forgive me." "Han Lang, I didn't mean to kill you. That stab wasn't fatal. I didn't know there was poison on the dagger. It wasn't my doing." Song Han-jo lowered his gaze to the hands at his waist, his brows and eyes cold and stern. He pried the hands from his waist, and Su Ru-yue whimpered in pain. "Han Lang, it hurts." Song Han-jo froze mid-motion. Su Ru-yue naturally understood he was softening, and sensing hope, wild joy surged in her heart. Su Ru-yue seized the moment to lunge forward, forcefully squeezing herself into his embrace, her arms tightly wrapped around his neck, face pressed against his chest, greedily breathing in the familiar scent, tears rolling down uncontrollably. "Han Lang, after you died, I didn't survive alone either. I wanted to find you to atone for my sins, to beg your forgiveness. Truly. Otherwise, how could I have experienced rebirth too? Han Lang, please, believe me." Song Han-jo didn't move, nor did he respond, letting the person in his arms sob and weep, only a trace of softening appearing in his icy eyes. I had just entered the courtyard when I saw this scene. Under the veranda, Su Ru-yue was draped over Song Han-jo's chest, her back trembling slightly as if sobbing, while Song Han-jo had his eyes lowered, his gaze hollow, with an indulgent daze about him. My gaze was calm, without ripples or waves. I watched quietly for a moment, didn't disturb them, turned and left. At the Eastern Palace, I carried the sweet soup prepared by the Empress to find Song Han-jo. The maid said he was discussing matters with ministers, but I made my way through unobstructed and came to wait for him in the study. The study was quiet and still. Bored, I glanced around, and my gaze was drawn to an object on the antique shelf. An exquisite and luxurious dagger, with a ruby of rich color embedded at the end of the hilt, dazzling brilliantly under the sunlight. I walked forward, took down the dagger, and just as I drew it halfway out, the cold glint of the blade dazzled my eyes. I couldn't help but caress it. There was movement at the door. I looked up to see Song Han-jo's clear, gentle eyes fixed on me, but when he saw what was in my hands, his expression froze. He strode forward, seized my wrist, and before I could cry out, the dagger was snatched away, his grip so strong it made me furrow my brows. "Who said you could touch it?" His voice was tense with hostility. Hearing his angry voice, I flinched, and tears fell uncontrollably. "Brother Han-jo, I am sorry. I just thought it looked pretty. I couldn't help it." "I am sorry, Brother Han-jo. I was wrong. Please don't be angry." Hearing my incoherent sobbing, he seemed to come back to his senses, and the dagger fell to the ground with a clang. Song Han-jo wiped away my tears, his tone carrying a hint of regret and panic. "Hwaner, it is my fault. I shouldn't have lost my temper. Don't cry. Forgive Brother Han-jo, okay?" I obediently nodded and softly replied, "I understand." "Good girl. This thing is too dangerous. Don't touch it again, okay?" Song Hanjo's eyes were filled with complex emotions, his tone low. Okay. I raised my head, meeting his tender gaze, my reddened eyes curving slightly. Brother Hanjo, the Empress asked me to bring you sweet soup. Hurry and try it. Saying this, I walked to the food box by the table. Song Hanjo glanced at the corner, his expression cold and dark, but retracted his emotions in an instant. All right, let's go try it. He picked up the food box, took my hand and left, his brows and eyes filled with a smile, leaving that luxurious dagger behind, unattended. Afterwards, Suruye keenly noticed that Song Hanjo had become cold and disgusted with her again. Occasionally, when their gazes collided, she could even see a hint of killing intent hidden deep in his eyes. This made her anxious and afraid, but every time she had no way to get close to him. I saw Suruyue's glistening teardrops swirling in her eyes, yet she forcefully held them back. That look was utterly heartbreaking. Of course, I was that heartbroken person. I pleaded before Song Hanjo, begging several times. He helplessly tapped my forehead and left a single phrase, "As you wish." Suruye wanted to rush forward in a panic, but stopped in her tracks when she met Song Hanjo's gloomy, deep gaze. Her face turned deathly pale, her whole body swaying as if about to collapse, seemingly about to faint at any moment. Song Hanjo turned a blind eye, poured tea for me, taught me calligraphy hand in hand, in an intimate manner. Suruye got her wish to stay by my side and serve me, watching the intimate and ambiguous interactions between me and Song Hanjo every day. Her complexion grew paler and more fragile day by day, hatred churning in her eyes, looking at me as if she wanted to rip me apart. Until Song Hanjo placed the twin lotus jade hairpin in my hair, his expression cherishing. "Huaner, I made this with my own hands, a gift for you. Do you like it?" The lotus petals glowed with a warm luster under the setting sun. I reached up to touch it, my eyes brimming with a smile. "I like it. Everything Brother Hanjo gives me, I like." Song Hanjo held the person in his arms tighter, sighing involuntarily. "I really want to marry my Huaner and bring her home soon." I raised my hand and gave him a light punch, burying my face in his chest. Refusing to look up, his indulgent, deep, magnetic laughter echoing in my ears. Nearby, Suruyu's hands hidden in her sleeves dug deeply into her palms, her eyes completely red, the hatred in her gaze solidifying into something tangible. She could only lower her head and bite her lip, desperately holding back. Recently, grandmother had been bedridden with illness, and despite constant medicine, there was no improvement. Hearing that praying at Sion Temple was most effective, I decided to go and draw a fortune stick for her safety. Inside the carriage, I held the excellent fortune stick I had drawn, a smile rippling across my lips, my eyes filled with hope for grandmother's recovery. Suruyue sat to one side. Beneath her lowered eyelids, a dark gleam flashed past, her hands resting on her knees quietly clenched tight. Whoosh! The sound of something cutting through air shattered the forest's tranquility. A cold arrow pierced through the carriage curtain, grazing past my ear and embedding into the wooden board behind. The vibrating sound still echoing by my ears. Before I could react, another arrow shot straight at my chest. At that critical moment, Suruye beside me suddenly sprang up and lunged straight toward me. The arrow lodged in her back, blood instantly staining her plain. Colored clothes red, Suruye let out a pained groan, collapsing weakly into my arms, a strange gleam flashing through her eyes. Song Hanjo galloped over just in time to see Suruye blocking the arrow for me, blood staining her entire body, his pupils contracted, his eyes turning crimson red, his whole being like an enraged beast. The steed beneath him neighed as it charged toward the carriage. He leaped off, shoved me aside, his expression anxious, carefully lifting Suruyue into his arms. Suruyue struggled to open her eyes. Seeing who had come, her bloodless face managed a smile. "Han, Lang, you finally come." After saying this, she fainted. He lowered his head, looking at the person on the verge of death, his eyes filled with intense heartache and unease, lifting her up, mounting his horse and galloping away in a cloud of dust. From beginning to end, Song Hanzhou didn't spare me a single glance. I stared at that resolute retreating figure, unable to come back to my senses. Just then, a blood-stained longsword thrust straight toward me. My shadow guard suddenly appeared, swift as lightning, and the assassin was slain. Warm blood gushed out, splattering onto my white roof skirt, blooming into a glaring red. The smell of blood filled my nostrils. I lowered my gaze, staring at the mess of bloodstains, my voice calm without a ripple. Return to the manor. After a pause, I gripped the divination slip in my hand tighter, and added, "Leave no one alive." The morning light was warm and soft. I sat before the vanity as Chunhua styled my hair for me. She glanced at me in the mirror and spoke carefully. "Miss, there was quite a commotion at the Eastern Palace last night. Miss, there was quite a stir at the Eastern Palace. His Highness the Crown Prince carried Ruye back to the Eastern Palace, summoned all the imperial physicians overnight, and stood guard outside the side hall without leaving for even a moment. I heard His Highness even lost his temper, saying if they couldn't save Ruyue, he would hold everyone in the Imperial Medical Bureau accountable." Chunhua grew more agitated as she spoke. How could His Highness be like this? If Miss didn't have shadow guards yesterday, who knows what would have happened? That Ruyue is truly shameless, knowing full well that His Highness has a marriage agreement with you. And yet, I idly fiddled with the Twin Lotus jade hairpin, then suddenly let out a laugh, gently inserting the hairpin into my hair, my movements elegant and composed. "All right, go fetch some medicinal herbs from the storeroom." Looking at Chunhua's bewildered expression, I stood up. "It is time. I should go visit my savior." Inside the Eastern Palace, it was completely silent, not at all the big commotion Chunhua had described. I slowly walked toward the study, pushed open the door, and saw Song Hanzhou standing by the window. His back tense, concealing a fierce aura. Hearing the movement, he turned around, and after seeing who it was, quickly stepped forward and pulled me into his embrace. "Huaner, thank goodness you are." "All right." Song Hanzhou tightened his arms, his voice choked with lingering fear. I felt his chest heaving unsteadily, patted his back. "Brother Hanzhou, I am fine, don't worry." We quietly embraced for a long time. The atmosphere in the room soft and comforting, and we tacitly didn't mention anything that happened yesterday. From outside the study came a maid's hesitant voice. "Your Highness, that person in the side hall has woken up." I clearly felt Song Hanzhou's body stiffen for a moment. The originally warm atmosphere suddenly turned cold, his voice icy. "Don't bother with her. Throw her out of the Eastern Palace." The person outside the door was stunned for a moment. Last night Song Hanzhou had still treated her like a treasure, summoned all the imperial physicians, kept watch all night. Yet now he had completely changed. The maid didn't dare move for a moment. "Are you deaf?" Song Hanzhou's voice rose, carrying impatient hostility. "Get lost. Wait." I spoke up at the right moment, grasping his hand, raising my eyes to look at him, disapproval in my gaze. "Ruya is my savior, Brother Hanzhou. You mustn't." Song Hanzhou lowered his head, locked in a standoff with me for a while, sighed and relented. "Send her back to the Prime Minister's residence. No need for special care. She is just a maidservant. If she dies, she dies." The maidservant outside the door seemed to have received a pardon, hastily responded, and hurried away. Listening to those eager footsteps, I laughed at an inappropriate moment. "Brother Hanzhou, you are too fierce." "You!" He pulled me into his arms, rubbing his chin against the top of my head. In the side hall, Su Ruye woke up, expecting to see Song Hanzhou. Although she had fainted last night, she still retained a sliver of consciousness. She knew he had watched over her all night, had summoned all the imperial physicians from the Imperial Medical Bureau for her, and knew Song Hanjo had held her hand, telling her not to fall asleep. Thinking of this, the smile at the corner of her lips grew even brighter. Her handling had finally returned. He still had her in his heart. Su Ruye thought Song Hanjo would come to see her right away. But unexpectedly, what arrived were several burly old women. Without a word, they threw off Su Ruye's quilt and dragged her away. "What are you doing? Let go of me!" Su Ruye screamed in alarm, the wounds on her back instantly gushing blood from the rough manhandling. The piercing pain made her vision go black. She screamed in agony, "Do you know who I am? I am the future crown princess. His Highness won't let you off." "Let go. Pa." The matron on the left spat, sizing her up with contemptuous eyes. "With your looks, you think you deserve to be crown princess? Ugly as you are, dreaming big, aren't you? Why don't you piss and look at yourself in the reflection? Our crown princess is the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's residence. What the hell are you to dare have such delusions?" Su Ruye was so furious her blood surged. The pain from her wound intertwined with the blunt humiliation, making her face pale as paper, her lips trembling, unable to speak. In her previous life, she knew she couldn't compare to Shen Qinghuan, but since Song Hanjo doted on her, no one dared say a word. Now being publicly humiliated like this was driving her nearly mad. Su Ruyue struggled desperately, but couldn't break free from the matron's iron grip. She could only let them drag her outward, blood from her back dripping onto the ground, a shocking sight. In the corridor, Song Hanjo and I saw Su Ruyue being dragged out. I instinctively cried out, "Let her go quickly! What is this about?" I grabbed Song Hanjo's hand, my voice urgent. "Brother Hanjo, you said you would carefully send Ruyue back. What is this? Quickly make them let go." Su Ruyue spoke first, her voice pitiful and mournful. "Darling Hanjo, it hurts. It hurts so much." Tears slid down her pale, fragile cheeks drop by drop, making one's heart ache uncontrollably. Song Hanjo pressed his lips together without a word, his gaze fixed intently on Su Ruye. Her cries for help were stuck in her throat, and an ominous premonition rose from the bottom of her heart. He took in Su Ruye's changing expression, his voice sinister and cold. "Drag her away." He raised his hand again to cover my eyes. "Good girl, don't look, don't dirty your eyes." I clutched his sleeve tightly, my body trembling, looking terribly frightened. Song Hanjo saw this, and his heart ached deeply. He recalled that in his past life, although Huaner had been pampered while growing up, her temperament somewhat spoiled and willful, she had always been kind-hearted. Even if she had been jealous of Su Ruye, she never had any intention of harming anyone, only wanting to drive her away. In his past life, Huaner died from poisoning. It must have been Su Ruye's doing. Thinking of this, a dark glint flashed across the depths of his eyes. Not yet, he had to let Huaner see Su Ruye's true nature before he could deal with her. Otherwise Huaner, being so kind-hearted, would be heartbroken. Song Hanjo wrapped his arm around my waist, sheltering me in his embrace. His presence was steady and safe. "Huaner, don't be afraid, I am here." I glimpsed the black token in his other hand. Song Hanjo was gripping it so hard he nearly snapped it in half. I imperceptibly curled my lips, leaning against his chest, my body trembling lightly. Su Ruye was sent back to the Prime Minister's residence. For the first few days, she refused to eat or drink, and drove away the people who came to apply medicine and the doctor who came to treat her. I was burning with anxiety and couldn't help crying out loud. When Song Hanjo found out, he directly cut off her food and water, forbade any doctor from treating her, and left her to fend for herself. At first, she still held onto a sliver of hope, screaming and crying out, but only the empty, silent room answered her. Her wounds became infected and festered, the pain keeping her awake all night. 2 days later, Su Ruye could no longer hold on, and weakly cried that she was wrong. I couldn't bear it, and sent people to take care of her again. This time, she quietly let them do as they pleased, not making a single sound throughout. Chunhua came to report. I scattered fish food, slowly curling the corners of my lips, watching the fish fight for food. Days passed one by one. Su Ruya's wounds gradually healed, and she secretly ran to the Eastern Palace, wanting to see Song Hanzhou. This past month, she heard that Song Hanzhou and Shen Qinghuan were inseparable day in and day out, and their wedding date had been set. The entire capital was envious and sending blessings to this pair of lovebirds. But as soon as she approached the palace gate, she was stopped by the guards. When the guards saw her trying to force her way in, they directly kicked her flying to the side. Su Ruyue curled up in pain, hearing the respectful voice of the guard. "Your Highness, Miss Shen." She looked up and saw Song Hanzhou holding Shen Qinghuan's hand as they came out. Spring sunlight bathed the two of them, and Song Hanzhou's eyes were gentle as he lowered his head to say something to Shen Chuan. Making her giggle softly, Su Ruya opened her mouth. "Han, Aya." My footing was unsteady, and I nearly fell. Song Hanzhou hurriedly steadied me. "What is wrong? Where does it hurt?" Before I could speak, he picked me up, turned back to the Eastern Palace, and ordered coldly, "Go summon the imperial physician." I nestled in his arms, whispering softly, "I am fine, Brother Hanzhou, don't worry." But my eyes were watching the person curled up on the ground, the corners of my eyes slightly raised. Su Ruye watched this scene, the blood in her entire body freezing. All her unwillingness, jealousy, and humiliation erupted in this moment, with crazed hatred in the depths of her eyes. At night, Su Ruyue finally limped back to her residence. As soon as she reached her room, she saw a letter on the table. Her expression suddenly tensed, and she carefully looked around before opening the letter. After a long while, she slowly raised her head, her eyes filled with eerie excitement, a twisted smile curling at the corners of her lips. In late spring, my birthday arrived. Thinking about the surprise song Hanzhou had mentioned last night, I couldn't wait and hurried to the Eastern Palace early in the morning. Tinglan Garden, the entire garden filled with quanghua flowers adorning every branch, like clouds and snow, rustling down wherever the wind passed, an intoxicating spring scene. When I was young, I once visited my maternal grandmother's home in Yangzhou and fell in love with quanghua flowers. After returning to the capital, I could never see quanghua again, feeling gloomy all day long. After Song Hanzhou learned of this, he built this Tinglan garden in the Eastern Palace, planting the quinhua flowers I loved inside. Song Hanzhou stood among the flowers, refined like a gentleman, his handsome face carrying a smile. Beckoning to me, "Huaner, come here." I lifted my skirt hem and ran toward him. "Hanzhou Ge, it is so beautiful." He caught me, his breath drawing close. Huaner is the most beautiful." My cheeks flushed crimson. I turned my head and gave a light cough. "Hanzhou Jege, today is my birthday. Can you tell me what the surprise is now?" Song Hanzhou's warm hands wrapped around mine, leading me further inside. "Let's celebrate your birthday first." After several rounds of wine, my curiosity had truly been piqued to the fullest. With hazy, drunken eyes, I tugged at his sleeve, my voice sweet and soft. "Hanzhou Ge, where's your surprise? I can't wait any longer." He looked at my cute and silly appearance, tenderness he couldn't hide pooling in his eyes. His fingertip gently flicked my nose. "Little drunk kitty, I'll take you there then." When I stood up, I felt terribly dizzy, couldn't stand steady, and fell into his embrace, murmuring, "So dizzy." Song Hanzhou steadily lifted me up, and I naturally wrapped my arms around his neck, a smile rippling at the corners of my lips. In the study, Song Hanzhou placed me on the chaise lounge and tidied my stray hair for me, when his back suddenly tensed. A wave of killing intent struck, so fast it caught us off guard. His pupils contracted sharply, and just as he was about to rise and block it, I suddenly got up and shielded him. The sound of a sharp blade piercing through flesh was extremely grating. I couldn't bear it and cried out. "Hwaner!" Song Hanjo caught me, his gaze trembling. He reached back and drew the long sword hanging nearby. Cold light flashed, and the blade pierced through the attacker's chest without hesitation. Su Ruya's eyes were full of shock and surprise. Before she could even react, intense pain spread through her chest. She slowly lowered her head, looking at the blade protruding abruptly from her chest, blood gushing out. Disbelief filled her eyes. She opened her mouth, blood spilling from her throat. Her gaze fixed intensely on Song Hanjo, filled with unwillingness and obsession as she softly called out, "Han, Lang." Song Hanjo's hand, gripping the sword, suddenly stiffened, frozen in place. It wasn't until Su Ruya fell straight backward, crashing heavily onto the ground, that he snapped back to his senses and instinctively took a step forward. "Brother Hanjo," the intense pain in my back made cold sweat pour down. I called out to Song Hanjo with a thread, like breath, then fainted in his arms. He held my arm, trembling violently, his eyes full of panic and fear. Someone come quickly. Summon the Imperial Physician. Summon the Imperial Physician immediately." As he spoke, his steps stumbled in panic, stepping over Su Ruya's cold hand, rushing madly outside. When I opened my eyes again, a bright yellow canopy came into view. I moved my fingertips, and a pulling pain came from my back. Hurried movement sounded beside me. Song Hanjo woke with a start, his eyes filled with anxiety and unease. Seeing me awake, wild joy overflowed in his eyes. His voice choked with the relief of recovering something lost. "Hwaner, you are finally awake. How do you feel? Does the wound still hurt?" "I am fine now. Don't worry, Brother Hanjo." I raised my hand to brush over his slightly furrowed brow, seeing the exhaustion under his eyes, my voice hoarse and soothing. "Brother Hanjo, I made you worry." He grasped my hand, pressing it against his lips and rubbing it gently, only shaking his head, not saying a word. The days of recuperation were long and peaceful. Song Hanjo stayed by my side almost constantly, feeding me medicine, reading storybooks, personally wiping my hands and face, gentle and considerate. This day, Song Hanjo went to handle palace affairs. Chunhua came in carrying medicinal soup. I took it and asked casually, "Has something happened outside?" The third prince was found guilty of forming factions for personal gain and secretly amassing soldiers and weapons. He has been demoted to a commoner and confined to his residence, forbidden to leave for life. Smelling the bitter scent of herbal medicine, I furrowed my brows. "What else? What about Ruye?" Chunhua's expression faltered for a moment, hesitating to speak. I continued, "It is all right, tell me. The Crown Prince won't blame you. She attempted to assassinate His Highness, was killed on the spot, and thrown into the mass grave." Closing my eyes, I downed the medicine in one gulp, and only felt better after putting a piece of preserved fruit that Song Hanjo had prepared into my mouth. "All right, I understand." Later, Song Hanjo sat by the bed, peeling sweet apricots for me. I casually asked, "Brother Hanjo, where is Ruya? I haven't seen her for a long time." Song Hanjo's hands didn't pause, his expression calm as he brought the peeled sweet apricot to my lips, his tone nonchalant. "She was caught trying to steal and was kicked out of the residence." "Hwaner, stop thinking about unimportant people. The most important thing for you right now is to recover well." I ate the sweet apricot and instinctively turned my head to spit out the pit. Song Hanjo reached out to catch it, tossed it aside, then leisurely wiped his hands clean. Only then did he look up. Seeing my dejected and dazed expression, he pulled me into his arms, his tone gentle. "What is wrong?" I wrapped my arms around his waist, my voice muffled. "Nothing, silly girl, being so kind." Hearted isn't a good thing. A lowly servant isn't worth your concern. He lowered his head and kissed the top of my head, comforting me. Juaner, don't overthink it. I am here. By my ear was a steady, powerful heartbeat. The gloom in my heart dissipated, and when I came to my senses, I realized I seemed to have been kissed. I hurriedly pushed away the person in front of me. Song Hanzhou was caught off guard by the push. Seeing my reddened ear tips, he finally understood. He leaned in close, his breath brushing past my ear. Is Juaner shy? I turned my head to dodge, my tone low and annoyed. You are still saying it. All right, I won't say it anymore. He smoothly wrapped his arms around me, resting his chin on my shoulder. Then how about a hug? I couldn't break free. Song Hanzhou whispered by my ear, his voice low and husky, tempting. Juaner, I can't wait to bring you back to the Eastern Palace. Once your injuries heal, let's get married, all right. Listening to his gentle, tender tone, I couldn't help but nod, my lips showing undisguised happiness. In the 36th year of Jiayu, the Crown Prince's grand wedding was held, with a tenly red bridal procession, celebrated throughout the realm. In the 39th year of Jiayu, the Crown Princess gave birth to a legitimate son. His Majesty was overjoyed and granted amnesty throughout the realm. In the winter of the 40th year of Jiayu, His Majesty passed away. The Crown Prince ascended the throne and changed the era name to Zhaoxi. In the first year of Zhaoxi, at the enthronement ceremony, I wore the Empress's court attire with a phoenix crown, ascending to the throne together with Song Hanzhou, receiving homage from all officials. That same year, the legitimate son Song Yanheng was bestowed the title of Crown Prince. Time flew by, 8 years passed in the blink of an eye. During these 8 years, Song Hanzhou governed diligently, ushering in a golden age for Great Qian. The people lived and worked in peace, and the court was orderly and just. In the autumn of the 8th year of Zhaoxi, His Majesty fell into a coma and wouldn't wake. Inside Zekin Hall, the chief physician of the Imperial Medical Bureau knelt on the ground, his voice trembling. Your Majesty, the Empress, His Majesty, his dragon body, the oil has run dry and the lamp is dying. We are powerless. The hall fell into deathly silence. A palace maid supported my unsteady body. My voice hoarse, I waved my hand. You may leave. On the dragon bed, Song Hanzhou's breathing was faint, his complexion alternating between pale and ashen. His once tall and upright figure was now frail beyond measure. He lifted his eyelids slightly, and in the dim candlelight, his gaze immediately fell upon me, keeping vigil by the bedside. My face covered in tear stains. I noticed he was awake and gripped his hand tightly. My voice choked beyond recognition. Your Majesty. Song Hanzhou stared at my reddened eyes and struggled to tug at the corners of his lips, trying to give me a comforting smile. Juaner. This long, unheard pet name instantly shattered all my composure. I couldn't hold back anymore, burying my face in the back of his hand and sobbing uncontrollably. Brother Hanzhou, don't leave me, okay? He watched me crying my heart out, wanting to raise his hand to wipe away my tears. He had just lifted it an inch before it fell heavily back down. Juaner, don't cry. This time, I protected you. It is just, I can't accompany you any further. After finishing this short sentence, Song Hanzhou was gasping for breath. His voice grew weaker and weaker. Juaner, there is an imperial edict in the hidden compartment on the inner side of the bed. My tears kept falling uncontrollably. Song Hanzhou spoke with difficulty, his voice broken. Henger is still young and will need you to look after him in the future. This is an edict of regency. You may rule from behind the curtain. He used his last bit of strength to grasp my hand. Juaner, I entrust the court and Henger to you. I lowered my gaze and stared at his pale, frail hand for a moment, then slowly pushed it aside and took out the bright yellow imperial edict from the hidden compartment. Pinching that scroll of bright yellow imperial edict between my fingertips, I suddenly let out a soft laugh, the sound crisp and cold. I elegantly wiped away the remaining tear stains from the corners of my eyes with my sleeve, my movements composed, with not a trace of sorrow in my eyes. Song Hanzhou's unfocused gaze froze. Meeting his confused expression, I slowly parted my lips. Song Hanzhou, Shen Qinghuan will never forgive you for all eternity. These words exploded in his mind. His pupils contracted sharply as he stared at me in disbelief. This is a blood-stained letter I left behind after my death in my previous life. In my previous life, I married into the Eastern Palace, and that very night I was sent to the most remote courtyard. Song Hanzhou refused to see me. He hated me for holding the title of crown princess, making his beloved woman suffer. My days in the Eastern Palace were miserable and unbearable. I once secretly paid someone to send letters home. My parents were heartbroken and came to the Eastern Palace to see me, but were turned away by the crown prince. So my father confronted Song Hanzhou in court, questioning him in front of His Majesty, humiliating him and earning his resentment. My father held immense power, with former students and officials spread throughout the realm. Song Hanzhou needed my father's influence yet also feared it. He began scheming, secretly laying a deadly trap. In the end, my father was imprisoned. My mother took her own life, and no one could help me anymore. At first, I was unwilling to accept it. Why should this be? Song Hanzhou and I were childhood sweethearts. How could he change his heart so easily? I made scenes, I argued, but eventually gave up. I just wanted to divorce him and never see him again. But Song Hanzhou locked me in the courtyard, letting me go mad, forbidding me from mentioning divorce. Su Ruyue, however, often came to humiliate me. She told me about my parents' fate. I couldn't hold back anymore and scratched Su Ruyue, only to be kicked away by her. That night, I was dragged to the courtyard gate by Song Hanzhou. This was the first time I had seen him in the entire 4 months since our marriage. Song Hanzhou gripped my face so hard it became distorted, his eyes sinister and full of disgust. Shen Chuanhuan, you dared to hurt Yu'er. You deserve to die. In front of all the servants, I was beaten 10 times, knocked unconscious. When I woke again, I was vomiting blood. Chunhua desperately found me a doctor, and only then did I learn that I had been poisoned and didn't have long to live. That poison tormented me until death seemed preferable to living. Every time it flared up, each breath brought a lung-tearing pain. For an entire month, I clung to life in darkness and agony, watching myself wither and rot little by little, until the last drop of blood and breath was gone. I wrote a letter in my own blood, each word filled with tears and overwhelming hatred. Even after death, I found no peace. My soul was trapped in the Eastern Palace, where I witnessed something utterly satisfying. Su Ruyue killed Song Hanzhou. Turns out she was the third prince's shadow guard, sent to assassinate Song Hanzhou. After Song Hanzhou died, Su Ruyue also died for love. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the eve of the Lantern Festival, one day earlier than their rebirth. From then on, I began laying my plans, step by step, until now. I traced the edge of the imperial edict, my tone flat. What? Surprised. You and Su Ruyue could both be reborn. Why couldn't I? Looking at Song Hanzhou's shocked and ridiculous expression, I let out a light laugh. My rebirth came even a bit earlier than yours. In an instant, Song Hanzhou figured everything out. He widened his eyes, wanting to speak, but started coughing, a trace of blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. Don't be so impatient. I wiped away that smear of red for him, threw the handkerchief on the ground in disgust, stood up and ground it under my foot. Everything Su Ruyue said was right. She really didn't want to kill you. It is just a pity that the third prince had long anticipated she would go soft, so he had someone coat the dagger you gave her with poison. She did indeed die for love of you. When you went soft, the dagger I deliberately took out. the token left behind during the assassination. And also, I paused for a moment, watching Song Hanjo's chest heave violently, a harsh rasp escaping from his throat, and smiled gently. Do you know why I insisted on celebrating my birthday at the Eastern Palace back then? Because I knew Su Ruye planned to assassinate that day. She thought you wouldn't be at the Eastern Palace that day, so she found someone to substitute for you, planning to kill them to complete her mission. What a pity, I said with regret. In the end, she died at the hands of the person she loved most. I suppose that counts as dying where she belonged. Don't you agree, Your Majesty? Your Majesty, how does it feel to kill the person who loved you most with your own hands? Song Hanjo squeezed out a wisp of breath through clenched teeth. Bone, deep venom in his voice. You deserve to die. I stepped forward step by step, my gaze fixed with murderous intent, wishing I could cut him into 1,000 pieces. You are the one who deserves to die. In the previous life, you loved both Su Ruye and that supreme power, so you pushed all the blame onto me. Song Hanjo, didn't you have backbone? You knelt for 3 days and 3 nights. The late emperor gave you a choice. So why did you back down again? How truly hypocritical and disgusting. I admired his look of impotent rage, flicked my sleeves. Your Majesty, the poison you've been afflicted with is exactly the same as mine from my previous life. Does it hurt? In my previous life you knew full well it was Su Ruye who poisoned me, yet you turned a blind eye. Now have a taste yourself. I raised my hand to cover his eyes that were red to the point of bleeding, my tone flat. Rest assured, the court will be the same with or without you. Go in peace. A faint whimper escaped from Song Hanjo's throat. His fingers curled slightly, as if trying to grasp something, finally slowly releasing, falling silent. In the 8th year of Zhaoxi, His Majesty passed away. I held Song Yunheng's hand and walked step by step toward the court hall. Noticing his uneasy expression, I tightened our clasped hands to comfort him. I sat upright behind the beaded curtain at the back of the imperial throne, posture straight, eyes lowered gazing at the sea of officials below, expression calm. Over these years, I never forgot to cultivate my own forces, which have now become my confidence to control the court. In my previous life, Song Hanjo climbed up by stepping on my father's power, discarding my father once he was done using him. The piercing pain of my past life has been etched in my heart at all times, all for this day. In the future, I will push the Shen family to heights no one can reach, never again a sacrificial lamb for anyone to slaughter. I will make this empire of Great Qian truly in my own hands. The beaded curtain swayed slightly, and the ambition and sharpness in my eyes were no longer concealed. The life that belongs to me has only just begun.